Good morning, evening, or afternoon, whichever one's going on for you at this current point in time. Today, we're taking a look at the NXT Cordless Ridgid vacuum. Something happened where, unfortunately, I was doing a little truck cleaning and it just turned off. I checked the battery, it still had half an 8 amp hour battery, so I'm like, what the heck? I threw in a 6, threw in a 4, nothing. This thing just refused to turn back on. So I knew that it either blew a fuse or I blew the motor. So I did check, and fortunately for me, it was in fact the fuse. So let me just grab it over here just so you can see what happened. So inside the back, there is what's known as a thermal fuse or a thermal protective fuse. And it's a standard barrel type of fuse, and they call it a barrel because it's shaped like a long skinny barrel. And inside here, if you cut this heat shrink off, there is a filament, so you can see through that clear glass to see if it's broken. If it's broken, it basically sacrifices itself to protect the motor from amperage above what it's rated for. So I believe these are rated for 15 amps. If it exceeds that, it breaks itself to keep the motor safe. So I decided to create a small partition or a small connection just to get the vac going. And the way you can tell if the motor is still okay is put a battery in after you take everything apart and take the male end from the motor and touch the switch. If the vac turns on, then you know it's just this. But let me go get my multimeter just so you can see how to check this for yourself if you're not sure if it's broken or not, without having to cut the heat shrink off. So with your multimeter, you're going to take it over to the ohms or continuity, right? You're going to check for resistance / continuity. Switch it over to there. It says 0. Yes? So when you touch your leads, it'll usually beep for most modern multimeters to let you know there is continuity. If you look at the screen, you'll see there should be 0 resistance, which there is. Cool? So when you touch one end to one end and the other end to the other, there should be a beep if everything is working the way it's supposed to. So as you see, I'm touching both ends and nothing. That tells me that the fuse in here is broken, or in your case, it could potentially be a broken wire in here or here that connects the circuit, but I want to say 99% chance that the barrel is busted. You can cut this open and check the filament to see, but I'm going to go ahead and just skip that part and show you how to create a partition for yourself or a small section to reconnect that circuit so you can get your shop vac working instead of shipping it off back to Ridgid. Even though it's free of workmanship and defects, so there is a lifetime warranty on these, if you are under that warranty, then yeah, you can go ahead and send it off to them. But some people just want their shop vac working today, and if it's something so small, it would be really cool if Ridgid just sold these directly, and they could just be like, hey, or not even sell, but like, hey, can you send me one of these? All I got to do is plug and play. But that they're not going to do that. They want you to ship it to one of their shops. So if you respect the warranty, then you ship it off and wait whatever time. I'm going to show you how to skip that. So these connectors are from like an assorted Gardner Bender type of set. I hate the all-in-one crimper connector cutter that they came with. Those suck absolutely. So these are the Klein 3000 CRs. Humbly request that you pick these up. I think I found these as a pair with the self-adjusting strippers for $40. So I think that's a really good price. And if you need to make a bunch of these for whatever reason, this little adjustment here, and I've already made a video on these, but this adjustment here, you can basically pull it out and lock it to a specific length or a specific depth. Turn that screw in and pull your wire in, and you can keep making those consistent connections and those consistent strips over and over and over. So if you need to make 20 of those strips, you're going to have that same result every single time, and it's going to be super consistent. If you don't have one of those, however, you could go with whatever strippers you got. I'm not going to try to push anything on you. If you need standard strippers, just go with whatever you got. But if you can pick these up for a pair in a bundle for cheaper, then go for that too. Now the wires they're using from the battery port all the way to the motor is 16 gauge. I didn't have any 16 gauge on hand, so we are using 14 gauge solid core. What I will say is if you don't have 16 gauge on hand, I'm going to be using 14. Try to match the same gauge. Try to find 16 gauge wire. Go buy it. Do not go for smaller gauge. All right? Not 18, not 20, not 28, not whatever you can find at Harbor Freight. I'm not sure why that rhymed, but anyway, you're going to take a small piece of wire and you're basically going to match it up to the length of the piece that you need and clip it roughly there. Remember, you can always clip this down to size if you need to, but the magic is in the connections, right? So we're going to find a blue and a red. Now the blues, and I'm going to explain to you why, if you don't have access to a barrel fuse, if for whatever reason you can't find them, find the right size, or the shipping takes too long, then maybe you have one of these on hand. These are car fuses. Now this is a 25 just to show you, but if this fuse is a 15 amp, you go get a 15. Because if you get something higher, the fuse can handle it, but the motor might not. And if you get something smaller, then the fuse will pop the first time you turn it on because the vacuum can do higher amperage. So if you look right here, the blue one is able to get a connection on the fuse. See that? Right? So you're going to make two female ends. The motor has a male end, just clip that off and strip it, and then you're going to put one of the female ends on that one. Right? That's going to be your first connection. Your new connection, you're essentially going to make one of these without the fuse in the middle, and then put a female on that end, and you now have a connection from your switch to a fuse, and from the fuse to the motor. You have reconnected that circuit, and when you test with your multimeter, they should all have continuity. Alright, that's letting me know it's going to turn off if I don't touch it. But it's going to have a new connection, and all you have to do is then take this, heat shrink it. I've seen people using a zip ties. That is not okay, alright? These zip ties, like if you go to Walmart, these are rated for like 185 Fahrenheit and down to -40. I don't like plastic getting hot, cold, hot, cold, hot, cold because eventually it becomes brittle, and you don't want a zip tie eventually getting brittle, snapping off, and finding its way into the motor because that can lead to not good things. I'd rather have a nice, tight, heat-resistant piece of shrink wrap keeping all this together, or a high-quality UL-listed, electrical tape. That is going to be your best bet. Something that is used to being hot while also being completely non-conductive so that, it doesn't touch anything and short. So make the right decisions. But let me show you how to strip everything up just so that you can make your own. So find the right length, right? It's just about there. If you need a little more, you can always clip it down. But about there, just to be safe. Yeah. So, right, you can cut them with this, and the Klein cutters are also available too. So, make your cut. Super easy. I'm going to try to zoom in action for you so it's a little more easy to see what I'm doing. But essentially, you're going to take your conductor and feed it in up until you're going to measure it out right here. So once you see the conductor slightly just past the terminal, you know it's going to get a good bite when you crimp it down. You don't want to go all the way up to here, right? No, just until it has a good connection, but that the conductor's not touching the prongs where the prong is going to sit. So it's right to there, right? You can use your nail to kind of dig into where it's going to be, but essentially right there is the length you need, right? So I'm going to kind of score it with my nail. You could use a knife or a utility blade. Just don't go too deep because you might damage the conductor. Just to score it, bring it into here. You're going to bring it right to where that edge is. So take it until use the wire to push until right when you get to that edge, and that's when you're gonna lock it in. Twist it down, and you can see where the score is that my finger went. Take it, and if you need to make 10-20 connections or 10-20 strips, it's going to clip the same spot every time. Super easy. Just a click, super sharp blade. Come on, zoom in action. There you go. Right? You need to do the other side as well. You don't have to guesswork or do it again. Same distance, pulls, no problem. Now if you need to trim it down, all you have to do is feed this through, and you see how it's touching the terminal. You want to pull back slightly, right to about there. So you can take whatever cutter you have and just make it sure it's a nice square connection. You don't want tapered or beveled cuts. You want a nice straight across clip. And check. So once you get to right there, that's good enough for me. Now let's crimp. Now we come in with the 3000 CRs. See the little release button? You just press that and it releases. You're going to check for colors. So there's red, blue, and yellow. You're using the blue connection in this case. If you were using the red ones, then I guess go with the red ones. It's fine. But you're going to press it all the way in. Make sure it's not halfway out or whatever. Press all the way until you see that conductor go all the way through. You're going to make sure that you line that up. Try to get a good angle for you. Make sure the conductor's seated all the way through, and then put it right where the blue edge lines up with the side of the tool. When it's right there, it's a ratcheting motion, so you're going to slowly, while making sure the conductor's all the way through, slowly keep pinching, and that ratchet is going to make a double compression or a double crimp, which I really like. You're only going to crank it through until it stops. So you can't over tighten this. It has a certain limit that it goes to. Once you pull it off, you have a double compression. So it presses the conductor to the terminal, and it also presses some of the insulation to make sure that this can't just be pulled off with normal vibration. So it's a really nice tight compression. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. And slowly start pressing all the way through. Once you don't hear any more clicks, you let go and it'll auto release. And the same thing happens over here. So you now have two female connections. One is going to go to the switch, the other one's going to go to the male end of the motor for your vacuum. This is if you choose to omit the fuse. Since there are two in the system, I'm omitting it. That's what you're going to see in the video. But this is essentially what I did. In the future, if the other fuse should go bad, I will be putting in two of these in line to make sure that there is protection in the future. You don't want to be running your shop vac with no way of, something sacrificing itself in case your motor is getting too much power. Especially on that inrush when you first turn your vacuum on. Even if your vacuum normally runs at 8-9 amps, when you first turn it on, it can run up 11, 12, 13, in some cases 14, 15. If it gets above that, there's damage to your motor. Be very careful. So you don't want to skip anything. If you need to make one of these, this is essentially what it's going to look like if you have two female ends. Right? One goes to here. The other one would be from your motor, would go to the other end. Right? That's if you're going to be using a fuse. If not, this is what mine looks like. I did use the red ones for the ones that I put into my shop vac, but the blue ones work just fine. If not, maybe even a little more snug. So check out this clip of what it looks like after, and also making sure that it works. Just to make sure your piece, whether that be with your fuse or without, you're going to take a multimeter, take both your leads, and touch both ends just to make sure there's no breaks and there is continuity. Hear that beep? That tells you everything is good. Good. So now that we know it works, go get it installed, whether it be like this or with your fuse, and go test to make sure it's good. Little piece of video just to show you everything is working, because we don't do hacks and gimmicks here. The proof is in the pudding. So thermal fuse is what failed. I was able to use my own to create a small partition of 14 gauge wire here to the switch, and then put your battery in, hit the switch, vacuum works. So you've seen for yourself, sorry if this was a gritty, messy kind of video, but you see for yourself it does actually work. Instead of shipping off your tool to Ridgid for X amount of time while they take care of you. They will warranty it, don't worry, and they will fix it or replace it. But these are situations where, you know, you might just want to do it yourself. I'm going to throw in a battery really quick just to show you there is no game, there is no gimmick. All right, hold up. Right? It is working, because once I fixed it, I went back out to the vehicle and finished it. Had about like 20% left to do. Battery in. No problem. So if this should happen to you for whatever reason, check your thermal fuses. Before you go running into a store to just buy another vacuum, it may just be a tiny fuse that went out and your motor's perfectly fine. This is my absolute baby and I want to take care of it. That's why I got the anyway, you'll see it in my next video because I don't want to ruin anything, but that's why I take care of this thing, and I split the difference, so I got another shop vac, and we'll talk about that in the next video. But until then, work smart. Hope this worked.